especially, I guess, it will be in Mark chapter 14. Mark chapter 14. The story in Mark 14 begins at verse 3, but I'm not going to read all of the story, you'll know it, just the one verse. And I saw something on the news, about 3 weeks ago, that I can't get off my mind, and I'm going to get it off my mind right now. You probably saw it. They showed a photograph of Hiroshima. Immediately after the atomic bomb was dropped. You've seen that picture? Almost like a level field with just a few little stone buildings sticking up here or there. And then they showed a picture of what?
Hiroshima now.
Detroit.
Oh, Detroit.
In the same year. Beautiful city. And then they showed the comparison of the two cities today. Hiroshima is all rebuilt, modernized, beautiful, gleaming buildings. And Detroit today. When I saw the devastation in Detroit, our country, the most powerful country in the world, if they say, the wealthiest country in the world. And I saw those pictures. I said, I really can't believe this. I just don't believe it. Well, I have something, and some of you may have, if you have computers. It's a free program you can download and put on called Google Earth. Anybody have Google Earth? Thank you. One. It's really an interesting program because you can go anywhere on planet Earth, anywhere. And you can start with a satellite view and you can come right on down to a street. I've looked at my house right there. Your house really, but I'm calling it my house, my parsonage. And you can start in satellite and come right down, and there's that awful looking roof. And you can come right down to it and you can see the house, see this church. I said, I can't believe what I have seen on the news. So I took a journey to Detroit. You ever do that? And it's really something. It's amazing what can happen. And so I come right down on that city, Detroit. Now, this will be on the internet tonight, and I will get some bad emails, I'm sure. Because I don't mean to slam that city or any portion of the city, but facts are facts, truth is truth. And you come right down, and then in Google Earth, it's got a little device that you can click on it, and you actually come down on the street. And you can walk down the street with your cursor. You just keep walking down the street. I just picked out a street at random. I went down on that street, and I walked down that street. And on both sides, devastation, crumbling, awful looking. There's a couple of pictures right in your bulletin at the bottom that are right off of that site. And when you see it, and here's part of it, as you go down the street, and you can look to the right, and you can look to the left, and you can see the buildings as they are. Detroit. But every block, and I mean I went miles down streets, big city, hundreds of blocks, and every block, there's a building that's still up. Bars, saloons, tattoo parlors, pool rooms, and other various houses of disrepute. You can see them. They're there. Test me out on that, you that have Google Earth, and see. See if what I'm saying is so. And it is disturbing to see that right here, and you probably don't have to go to Detroit. Hey, how about Bunkie? How about Alexandria? I mean, you can go places, in every one of those places, there are those kind of areas that are absolute devastation. And it bothers you. In Mark chapter 14, this is just days before Jesus is going to be crucified. He's having a supper in a home. A woman comes in, and she takes perfume that takes a year's salary, a whole year's pay to buy that bottle of perfume. Very expensive, very precious. She breaks the bottle, she pours it over the head of Jesus to anoint him because she loves him so very much, and she knows that he is about to die. In fact, she knows what none of the disciples had picked up on yet. She knows he is going to give his life, and she wants to show him a deed of kindness. Well, immediately she gets slammed. In Mark chapter 14, there were some, the disciples, who said indignantly, "Why was this ointment wasted like this? For this ointment could have been sold for more than a year's salary, 300 denarii, and given to the poor." And they scolded her. "Shame, shame, shame, shame on you." But Jesus said, "Leave her alone. Why do you trouble her? She has done a beautiful thing for me. For you always have the poor with you. And whenever you want, you can do good to them, but you will not always have me." Now, when Jesus says to them, "You always will have the poor among you," he's quoting Deuteronomy 15:11, which you read this morning in the first verse of the responsive reading. You always have them. They're there. It's a perpetual poverty that is in this world. And why is that so? Why do we always have the poor among us? Well, do you ever watch Upstairs, Downstairs? Do you ever watch Masterpiece Theater? You ever watch Downton Abbey? I love that program. Watched every one of them. And you remember what that program was about in England, the elite, the upper class. In the upstairs is all these wonderful, wonderful, sweet, loving people that have great problems and troubles just like everybody, but they're upstairs and they have their own way of life. And then downstairs, in the kitchen area, are the servants. Wonderful, sweet, kind people for the most part. They have their problems, but it's two different worlds. And there is kind of a caste mentality. There is like an upstairs, downstairs mentality where some people are born into this and some people are born into this. And that's where they tend to stay. Another reason for poverty is some people are vulnerable to being exploited. There's a lot of injustice in the world. There are people who take advantage of people and keep people down. And then there are those that are unmotivated to improve themselves at all. They just flat won't try We call them lazy. And because of that, there's always going to be poverty. In some cultures, you are just born into that and that's where you're going to stay. In some cultures, you are taken advantage of by other people, and in some cultures, you just don't care, you don't try, you're not motivated. And so you're always going to have poverty, Jesus said. How do you get rid of it? How do you remove poverty? How do you help the poor? Well, some people have used erroneously Mark 14:7, where he says you're always going to have the poor with you. To use an excuse not to do anything. You're always going to have them, so why bother trying? But that is an error. That's not what Jesus is saying. Not at all. He's really saying in this life you have an opportunity to do what you can. This woman's done what she can, what she felt was right. She did it for me. She loved me. She showed me this kindness. And you can do anything you want for anyone if you will. And you have the opportunity to do it, to reach out. And as we read over and over in the responsive reading, taken from all different places of the Bible, it always tells us that if you have the love of God in your heart, you're going to show it to other people by helping them as much as you can and as much as they will let you. That's all you can do. Jesus himself knew what it was like to be poor. As they were going along, Luke 9 says, a man came, I'll follow you, I'll go with you anywhere. And Jesus said to him, foxes have holes, birds of the air have nests. The animal kingdom have a place to rest, but the Son of Man, myself, has nowhere to lay his head, doesn't even have a pillow. And I always remind myself of that verse when I see the prosperity preachers, the prosperity gospel, that if you just, put some in the plate, God is just going to pour it out to you, and you're just going to have blessings galore, and worldly blessings. And I always remember Jesus had nowhere. Someone has said, and I like this expression, how can you worship a homeless person and ignore a homeless person? Jesus was homeless. After he left the carpenter shop, he went about teaching and preaching and healing. He went about doing good, but he had not even a place to stay for himself. And how could we see someone like that, like Jesus, and not help those who are in real need? Well, Jesus did help the poor. And you're going to be surprised at how he helped them. Luke chapter 7:22. John the Baptist is beginning to doubt Jesus' messiahship, because it's not coming through the way John the Baptist thought it would be. And so Jesus tells the disciples of John, here's a message to take back to him. Here's how you encourage him. Tell him, the blind receive their sight, the lame walk, the lepers are cleansed, the deaf hear, the dead are raised up, the poor have the good news, the gospel, preached to them. How can the gospel help Detroit? How can the gospel help Alexandria and Funky and Evergreen? How can the good news that God loves you, he cares for you, he sent his son to die for you, he forgives you of your sin, he brings you into his kingdom, how can that gospel really help you, the poor, the needy, the hurting, the sick? How can the gospel help? Because it will change you. The gospel can change us. The gospel can change the poor. The gospel can change the needy. because it gives them meaning in life. It brings about a change to where they see themselves as a worthy child of God. They see themselves as someone who can accomplish something and do God's will, and they will change their habits and their ways and their means and their attitudes, and they will become somebody's because Jesus gave them the gospel. And he said, you tell John this, the poor have the gospel preached to them. We sing it so often. I want to sing it really at Thanksgiving. Count your many blessings. And you've heard this so often. When upon life's billows you're tempest tossed, you're discouraged, thinking all is lost, count your many blessings. You've heard it. I want to edit that. I want you to think about this. When upon life's billows you are tempest tossed, when you are discouraged, thinking all is lost, share your many blessings. Name them one by one, and it will surprise you what the Lord has done. So amid the conflict, whether great or small, do not be discouraged. God is over all. Share your many blessings. Angels will attend. Help and comfort give them to your journey's end. Take the blessings you and I have and share it with those who do not have them. And the most blessed thing you have is the gospel of Christ Jesus. And share that gospel. Give that gospel. See lives changed. See people who are downtrodden. People who are on the bottom of the boat. People who are the dregs of society. The good news of Christ when it's accepted and they transformed and they change and they're made into the children of God. Their whole lives will change.